Olympian sprang from the hole and pounced on Anvil, knocking him on his back. Once his opponent was down, Olympian used all his speed and power to put the boots to Anvil. 3 kicks and Anvil was red benched. Granite was on Olympian's back, with stretching limbs, trying to get a chokehold. Olympian grappled Granite's snake-like arms and held him so he could not let go. Olympian then flew fast, like kinetic for Eclipse. At the last second, he turned his body so Granite was between Olympian and Eclipse at impact. Eclipse was knocked down again, and Granite was red benched. Kinetic struck Olympian in the back and pushed him face first into the pit wall. Olympian pulled himself from the wall and never looked at Kinetic. He looked at Eclipse getting up. Olympian flew right at Eclipse's face and started to pound on him with fury. Eclipse tried to fight back, but was too slow. Kinetic struck Olympian again, but it was useless. Kinetic went to the other side of the pit to gain momentum for another attack. Eclipse was knocked to his back, then Olympian went for the finish. Olympian used his strength, flight, and both feet to stomp on Eclipse's stomach. Eclipse made a large noise as he gasped for air. Olympian saw his head and face come up as he reached both hands at Olympian. Olympian took a sharp step onto Eclipse's chest as he wound up his most powerful soccer kick. The kick would have gotten Eclipse right under the chin, but a silvery flash saved him from the blow. Kinetic struck Olympian with a mighty blow that sent him deep into the pit wall. Olympian flew back out, hugging one of the large stones as he flew. He flew toward Kinetic and punched the rock in his direction. Not this trick again, thought Kinetic as rocks and dust struck the force field surrounding him. Boom! Kinetic was struck to the ground from above. Olympian didn't wait for multiple rocks to cloud the air. He only waited for the instant Kinetic couldn't see. This time, Kinetic struck the ground with enough force to make a deep hole. Olympian followed him straight into the hole with force. Deep vibrations stirred the ground as Olympian hammered Kinetic's force field. The vibrations then stopped and a filthy Olympian rose from the hole. Kinetic ran from the red bench room to see the pit again. Olympian looked like a boy who just had his first kiss. He raised his flexed arms above him and the other students applauded his victory. Olympian enjoyed the applause and flew to the edge of the pit a little slower to enjoy the moment. That was quite the performance. You've earned first hitter, Coach Spurs said. I knew I could do it, Olympian said with a smile. A famous man once said to a friend after a favor in battle, Great kid, don't get cocky, Coach Spurs said to Olympian with a smile. Don't get a big head, got it. Olympian walked into the stands for congratulations by his peers. I can't believe he was able to beat them all, said Lucy. Has anyone ever done that before? Asked Midas. Yes, but never with this kind of competition. Midas wanted to ask more questions, but he heard Coach Spurs outside giving instruction. Everyone but Olympian and Midas should be getting to dinner. Track 2s, remember, you still have secrets training later tonight, Coach Spurs said. Midas told Lucy he would see her later. Midas then hurried out to see the coach. Olympian was covered with dirt and still smiling. I want you two to put the pit back in proper order, Coach Spurs told the two boys. Coach Spurs, Midas said. Yes? Can I make some changes to the pit so it doesn't keep needing to be fixed? What kind of changes? Coach Spurs asked. Well, I like the limestone chips on the ground for falling, but the walls could use some reinforcing, especially if we have a group of hitters that can break them up so easily. Can you give me an idea of what it would look like when it was done? Coach Spurs said while thinking hard. Don't have to. If you don't like it, we can always put it back the way it was. Coach Spurs failed to see the downside. Do whatever you want to do, but if I don't like it, you change it back. Deal! Oh, and can you get me a sample of some kind of super strong alloy? Midas asked. I'll send something back with a bot. You two get to work. Olympian just nodded. He knew when he was just along for the ride. What do you want me to do? Olympian stepped behind Midas and scooped him by the armpits without asking. Midas braced himself as Olympian flew him into the pit. Well, it's 1700 now. I guess I'll need 3 things. First, stuff all the pieces of rock back into the holes. Second, get me a ladder or something to get in and out of here. Third, bring me some dinner before you go to secrets training. Olympian looked questioningly at Midas. You don't need my help? You've got gloating to do with your fellow meteor punchers. Besides, I have a few things that I want to try that might take some time. Olympian was happy to hear he wouldn't have to stay long. This little brain is okay, Olympian thought. He then started moving the rocks at extraordinary speed. Midas looked back at the dugout cameras, the stands, the space behind the pit, and to the sides and tried to come up with a plan. He was still thinking when he realized that Olympian was gone. A few moments later, Olympian was flying overhead with the long steel pipe. He landed and leaned the pipe on the side of the pit. I couldn't find a ladder or a tech to help me find one, but I got this from behind the mock town. There's a bunch of construction materials back there. I remembered how you jumped in the hole, so I figured you could climb this if you need to get out, Olympian said. That'll be fine. Remember to wash before dinner, Midas told the very dirty Olympian. Thanks, I won't forget your dinner either. Olympian flew from the pit in the direction of the hotel. Midas picked up pockets full of stones and limestone chips before he did anything. He looked at the pipe and thought how he would do this and not wreck the pipe. He placed his hand on the side of the pit next to the pipe and calmed his mind. His power didn't have to affect everything. His shoes never changed. Nothing on him ever changed. Like Robert said, you just need to master your own imagination, he thought. He imagined gold coming out from his hand and into the wall slowly. He watched the gold only move at the speed he imagined it moving. When it came near the end of the pipe, he imagined his power ignoring the pipe, like it did him. Midas was elated when the pipe remained still as gold passed it. Soon the pit was gold, 3 feet deep into the walls and floor. Midas walked to the half-filled holes that riddled the sides. He placed his hands near the hole and started to change it from gold to silver, to steel, to lead, to aluminum, and metal after metal. With each change, the metal fused closer together. This will take forever, Midas thought as he looked at the other holes. Midas remembered how Robert was able to mold the metal in his hands into a cube. Direction and force, he thought to himself. He walked to the next hole and placed his hand on the gold surface next to it. Imagination is the direction, he said to himself again and again as he envisioned the hole closing. After 10 minutes, Midas thought maybe it was something he couldn't do. Midas then thought about the force that was needed to manipulate this much metal. More willpower, Midas thought. He put his hand next to the hole again and imagined it closing, then willed it to happen. Midas was knocked backwards from the gold that bunched up where the hole was. He quickly got to his feet and screamed, "Yes!" Midas placed his hand on the golden wall again. He knew the feeling he was looking for, and he made the gold smooth out by itself. He continued this trick until the whole pit was solid, smooth, shiny gold. Midas climbed the pipe up and looked at his handiwork. He then touched the 3 feet deep edge of the giant gold arena. He easily changed it to steel. Then he looked at the outer edge and envisioned the edge of the pit expanding out from the stadium side toward the dirt side. Earth was pushed like a giant plow by the 400-foot side wall. Midas stretched the pit another 50 feet out on the far long side, then another 50 feet out on both short sides. Pit now measured 500 by 250 feet. Midas walked over to the other side and the giant dirt piles he just made. The boy was ecstatic at the new trick he'd learned. He turned the dirt piles into steel and made them move beyond the pit area like a giant steel inchworm. Midas stopped in his tracks. I'm able to make the metal move like it was alive, he thought. He then touched the large pile of dirt and turned it into steel. Midas then formed it through thought to look like a giant spider, 40 feet across. He took his hands off the spider and stood back. I can make anything, he said out loud. Midas touched the spider again and made a seat on the body with the steel bar in front for his hands to rest on. Midas climbed 10 feet up to the seat of the spider made of metal. He placed his hands on the bar and made the spider walk. The spider walked to the edge of the pit and tried to place one leg all the way down to the bottom of the pit. Midas used his power to make the legs in front long enough to reach the bottom for an easy ride for him. A bot came to the edge of the pit. I have a delivery from Midas from Coach Spurs, the bot said, waving a small object in its hand. Midas fused the legs of the spider to the bottom of the steel pit. The legs then stretched in the direction of the bot until Midas was close enough to take the object. It was the piece of super steel he asked for. Midas transformed the spider and the new pit into this new super steel. He then thought of how he could make the pit better. It should be stronger, deeper, bigger, and have a way for non-flyers to get out. Midas put himself to work making his ideas reality. Olympian was clean and bearing dinner in a basket when he flew to the pit. It wasn't the same pit he left. The pit was now bigger and deeper with shiny metal walls. It was now 40 feet deep with a 1 foot wide step every 2 feet high. The rim of the pit was 6 feet thick with super steel. The floor of the pit was still crushed limestone with a giant spider parked in the middle. Midas was nowhere to be seen. Midas, are you here? Olympian said in his super loud voice.